Hey guys, this is Sarah McEwan, and I'm going to be going over 3 basic concepts in Adobe Lightroom today. So the first thing I want to go over are portrait enhancements. The second thing will be how to create our own presets, and the third will be how to implement our watermark into all of our images seamlessly and easily. So if you've never used Adobe Lightroom before, we're going to start by importing some photos, and you can do that by going to the very bottom left corner of our screen here and clicking import. Now once we do this, we'll be able to navigate our way through our files to find the photos that we'd like to edit. Now I know I have some specific photos in mind of my sister that I took this summer that I'm going to find here. All right, here they are. So as you'll notice, all of our photos have check marks by them right now. And if you click import right now, it's going to import all of these photos, which might take a while. So I'm going to uncheck all, and then I'm just going to check the individual photos that I know that I want to edit. So let's see here, I'll choose this one, and I'll choose this one. And I guess I'll throw in a third one in there too, just to show you guys how this works. Alright, so once I've selected the images that I want to edit, I just click this import button in the bottom right corner. And that's going to import my photos into Lightroom. Now after you have those photos into your library, you're going to click on the develop button, which is up here on this upper right hand toolbar. And develop is where we can make all the edits to our photos. So I'm going to actually start with this photo. This is my sister Chloe, and I want to show you guys some of my favorite portrait enhancements. So first of all, just for those of you who aren't familiar with Lightroom, on the right hand side here is where we can do most of our edits to our photo. These are like our basic edits where we can change things like contrast, exposure, highlights, shadows, vibrance, saturation, etc. But the further you keep scrolling down, the more in depth you can get with your photo editing. Now, what I'm going to start with are some basic edits, whites and blacks. So this is just a basic photo edit. It's not really an enhancement for portraits, but just for photos all around. I learned this cool trick that to get the lighting pretty much perfect in your photo, all you have to do is hold down Alt while you adjust to these whites and these blacks. So if you do it without holding Alt, it'll just look like this, and you can see the changes. But if you do it while holding Alt, it's going to black out your screen, and it'll allow you to see the whites coming into the image. And you know that you have enough whites once you see just a few edges. So see how you see a few edges there? I'm going to leave my whites there. I think that's going to be sufficient. And I'm going to do the same thing for the black. I'm going to hold Alt and click on my blacks until I see just a few edges of my photo there. Now, I know it doesn't look like much has changed, but if you hit the letter Y on your keyboard or click on this where you see the Y symbols, you can see the difference between our initial image and the image we have now. And if you zoom in by doing Command plus or by just clicking on your keyboard here, that's a little too close, you can already see that the contrast is increased and the coloring looks a lot better just by those simple edits of whites and blacks. So I'm going to click Y again to go back to my single image, and I'm going to start doing some portrait enhancements on her face. Now I'm going to zoom in again with my Command plus to get real up close and personal on her face. Now Chloe has a few blemishes on her face here, so a tool that we can use is this spot healing tool. spot removal tool. And the shortcut for that is Q. But if you click on this, you can either choose the clone method or the heal method. I'm going to choose the heal to heal up her face. And see how my brush is really large right now? Well, I can make it smaller by using the left brackets on my keyboard, or larger by using the right brackets. So those brackets are what we're going to use to change the size of our brush here. And I'm just going to click over these spots that I would like to be removed, and you'll see that it's actually replacing that area that I've selected with another similar area on Chloe's face, and it's trying to guess what would look best in that area. Now, as you can see, it kind of grabbed an odd spot up here to where it makes a little dark spot on her chin here. So I'm going to actually, you can grab this and drag it to a different area of her face that you think looks better. So I think that looks pretty good. And you can just keep doing this on all the little blemishes. Usually it does it pretty good automatically, and you don't have to move around your location brush right here, but there are times when you'll have to do that, so it's good to know. So I'm just going around doing a few things. It's good to remember to not make your subjects look too perfect, because like this little freckle right here, I'm gonna leave it because it's a facial feature of Chloe. It's not a blemish of any sort. So yeah, I'm gonna let that one slide. Okay, so it's starting to look pretty clear on her face now. And just do a few more things. All right, I think we're good. So once you're done with all your spot healing, you can press done. And if you click the letter Y on your keyboard again, or once again, click this little comparison button, you can see the difference between the left original photo and the edits we did in the right photo. You can see that her skin looks a lot clearer, especially as we compare the little blemishes. So I'm going to hit Y again to go back to my image and my full image, and I'm next going to show you guys some awesome things that we can do with the brushes here in Lightroom. So this is the adjustment brush, and this acts pretty much like a paintbrush when we're editing our photos, and you can load your paintbrush with all sorts of edits. Now, first of all, the first edit I want to show you is just a simple, or you can choose your effect here. These are all the preset effects, but you can always go in and make a custom effect. But the first thing I want to do is dodge, which will lighten my photo, and just to lighten up this right eye, because in comparison to the left eye, it's a little bit shadowed. I'm going to do the same right bracket to make my paintbrush larger, and I'm just going to paint right over this eye and to make it lighter, and click done. I know it doesn't look like much, but once again, comparing it to our initial image, it's a little bit different. So, all right, so we lightened that eye up a bit. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select our brush again, but instead of having the dodge preset, we're going to click Iris Enhance. Now this is one of the ones that are on your computer, so all you have to do is click Iris Enhance. I'm going to Command plus to zoom in on my image, and as I make my brush smaller, I'm just going to draw on the white parts of her eye. Now what this is going to do is it's going to make her eye color pop a bit more, because there will be more contrast between the color and the whites of her eyes. So once I'm done with that, I can click done, and it's already making quite a big difference on her eyes compared to our initial image. All right, so zooming back in, now we're going to do another brush setting, and instead of Iris Enhance, we're going to go to Exposure. Now, within each preset, you can make adjustments to it. So usually exposure default is around 1, but I'm moving that down to between like 20 and 30 to paint over eyes. So what I like to do is to paint over the colored part of your eye with this exposure brush. And it just brings out the colors a lot more and brightens up the eyes. It definitely looks subtle here, but I'm going to click done. And once we press Y and compare that to our initial photo, it is quite a big difference. And I really like the way that looks. So this photo is just coming together really nicely now as we've done some of those face portrait enhancements. And when we click, let's see, as you click this button, you can kind of see all sorts of comparisons, half the face and such, but I really like this layout. You can see how Chloe just looks a lot more beautiful in this photo, in my opinion, and I think we did a great job. So always, in addition to those enhancements, you can make personal opinion edits of your photos. So I don't always like this, but I sometimes like to add a little bit of a greener tint to my photos, like really subtle, like -4. And then I like to actually decrease the vibrance, because this just gives it kind of an urban feel, I feel like, in contrast to that initial color scheme that we had going there. So let's see, I think that actually looks pretty good. So let's say you go through all your edits and you decide, I really like this preset. So one option you have, as you're going to your next photo, is you can actually synchronize your photos to the edits on this individual photo. So I really like the edits that I did here. So I'm going to select the rest of these photos and go back over to the right hand of my screen and click sync. Now when you do this, it's going to sync all the basic edits of like the whites and blacks that we did and the tint that I just did that last minute, but it's not going to do the adjustment brushes that I did, all the face enhancements, because if you think about it, when you move to the next image, her face is moved, and so we don't want those adjustment brushes to be painted on the blue wall in the background or on her hair instead of where her face should be. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave these as is and hit synchronize. And when I do that, we can look back through these photos and see that from this initial image, we also edited this one and this one. Now, if you compare this to the original, you can definitely see the difference and see that that same exact style that we had in our initial photo was applied to this photo and this photo as well. Now you can always make a few minor adjustments after the fact too, like I might even increase the contrast a little on this photo and just make a few other minor edits, but for the most part, this will really bring together your photos so that they feel like a cohesive set of images rather than just individual photos. So another way that you can create a sort of preset theme to your photos is to actually create your own preset. So over here on the left-hand side, there's a list of all these presets that Lightroom has pre-created for you. Now you can totally feel free to use these, but if you find an edit that you really like, you can click this plus button next to the presets and actually create your own preset. So I could call this urban edit. And if I create that, it adds that to the bottom of my presets. And when I import new photos into Lightroom, I can click on that preset and it'll apply these same exact edits to that photo, even if it's 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years in advance from now. I don't have to keep this photo and synchronize them. I can always just go back to my urban edit here. And I think that's really handy when we're doing portrait photography, family photography, that type of thing, where you have a lot of the same location, same lighting, things like that. All right, so last thing I want to show you is really, really cool. Now, I'm sure some of you knew this already, but you can add your watermark to all your images really easily here in Adobe Lightroom. So if I am satisfied with all of these images, then I'm going to select them all and click File, Export. Now when you export, there's a lot of settings you can choose from here, but what you really just want to focus on for the most part is your export location, because that's going to tell you where your photo is going to be saved, and then your file naming, because that is going to tell you, you can choose what you want to name your file. So I already have it set to Chloe and a custom name sequence, so her photos will be Chloe 1, Chloe 2, Chloe 3. And then if you scroll down to watermark, it's usually unchecked, but if you check it, you can actually add a watermark to your images. And usually you won't have these presets. It'll just say simple copyright watermark. And so in order to add these presets, you click Edit Watermarks. So let's go there together. And it's going to show your image and give you the option of either typing in your watermark here. It'll just be text, and it could say your name in whatever corner you like. You can choose the location of your watermark if you want it in the top left, top right, bottom left, etc. I usually like mine in the bottom right. But if you don't have a watermark, this is going to work great for your photos. You can come up here and choose a color, like black or white or whatever you feel like making the color of your watermark. And you can actually change the opacity so that it can be more present or less so. And you can make it larger, smaller. And these horizontal and vertical lines just change that location of the watermark. But let's say you've already spent time creating yourself a watermark and you want to implement that into your photos. All you have to do is under image options, you're going to click choose to choose a PNG or a JPEG image. So on my desktop, I know I have Sarah logo black. So I'm going to choose my black logo. And look, I already implemented it down here in the bottom right corner, but I think I want to make it a little bit larger. So you can change the size there, and then I can also move its general location. So I'll just have it right there. Oh, and I like to decrease the opacity a bit, just so that it's more subtle and it's not detracting from the image. About 30 right there looks nice. And once you're happy with that, with where your watermark is placed, you can click Save and title this. So I'm just going to call it Example Watermark. And I'm going to create that. Now, all these photos that I'm exporting are going to have that example watermark preset on there, on each image. So as I click export, I'm going to wait for these 3 files to load. And once they're done, we should be able to open each of those photos and see our watermark there in the exact same place, just as we set it up. Great. So I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to come over to these photos here. And if we open them all, whoops, see that all of them have the watermark in the bottom right hand corner. Now for this first one, we should probably use the white watermark instead of the black because we can't see it with her black jeans, but it works so well for creating consistency throughout your photos and just making sure that you're adding security to your photos as you're putting them online for lots of viewers. So I hope that helps you guys to understand a little bit more about how to do some nice portrait enhancements that still look natural and don't go over the top to make you look like a plastic Barbie or an alien. And also just, ways to save those edits that you really like and learning how to implement your watermark into your photos. So I hope you guys learned something, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have fun.